So welcome. This is a reconstruction of my flight to Singapore that I did about 4 weeks ago in January, which was the start of a 2-week lovely holiday. Finally, after quite a long time of not having any proper vacation, I finally made it and was flying to Singapore and stayed very shortly in Singapore, and then we continued to Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur and Borneo, and then coming back to Singapore for a couple of days in this fascinating city. So that was roughly my vacation. We're going to probably recreate the flights, all the flights that I did in these 2 weeks. So it was quite a packed 2 weeks. Today we start off with a briefing, pre-flight briefing here for the trip from Munich to Singapore with Singapore Airlines 327. It was an Airbus 350-900 that I was in, and we're going to replicate this by using the flight factor A350. Yes, I know it's may not be the most suitable for these kind of things, but yeah, you can actually use it. It does work, and as it turned out, in the end, it actually did a good job. I've, in the end, messed up a little bit when it came to the landing. I got a little bit distracted, and I haven't really been flying in the Airbus for a very long time, so I had quite a, how should we put it, decisive landing. Yeah. Anyway. So let's start. Simbrief is, as always, my planning tool of choice. So I let Simbrief calculate the flight. I'm not sure why I used SQ. I think that is the flight number that I had on my boarding card, but it's actually SIA. The KO is SIA for Singapore Airlines. So 17th of January 2020 was the day when we were flying, and 12:20 was our departure time of blocks. And yeah, as I say, it was an A350-900. The ground distance is 5,584. The air distance is 5,325 nautical miles. So it's quite a long distance. The average wind was 265 with 32 knots. Well, as it turned out, it did turn out a little bit different. That's the thing now. Actually, very interesting little fact. Simbrief allows you to upload a historical weather file, one that Active Sky creates. And so what you do is, if you have Active Sky XP as I do, you have to start Active Sky, and you also need to start the Simbrief downloader software. I use that in order to download my files and also the briefing and the operational flight plan and all that. It has to run, and then while you're on Simbrief, when you are preparing the flight plan, you switch to historical weather, and you tell it to upload a new file. And what happens then is, once you select this option, you need to make sure that you pick the right time, okay? So the right date, 17th of January, and then it will automatically download the file for the 17th of January 2020 from Active Sky, which in turn had loaded it before, because I told it to create a weather file for that date. That worked quite nicely, so I was actually able to use the Active Sky weather data that Active Sky used for historical weather replication in the flight planning in Simbrief. That's actually quite a nice touch. Yeah, didn't know that existed, just discovered it while I was preparing for this flight. So our estimated takeoff weight was 245.3 tons. the estimated landing weight 18 tons, and the zero fuel weight was 174, not 18, 183, yeah, 174 tons. We were roughly in that area. So as usual, the values that you get from Simbrief, they don't always match perfectly, but they're good enough and close enough. The alternate for the destination was WMKM. Well, we didn't need it, and we also didn't need to divert for any other reasons. So the planned fuel, the trip fuel, they were considering 11 hours of flying time with roughly 6.2 tons per hour. As it turned out, we used quite a bit of fuel initially, and then we were slightly higher because the winds weren't exactly in our favor. They weren't bad, but they didn't really push us very much. So at the beginning we used quite a bit of more fuel, but that had actually then, especially when we did our step climbs also, over time actually the wind turned and we were pushed. So all in all, the winds were probably in our favor, and in the end we got pretty much on the same level. We had one difficulty that I had to overcome, and that's the fact that I didn't want to do this flight of over 11 hours in original speed, so I was also not flying online. I use pilot to ATC for the ATC, and I use 4 times the ground speed, because that's the only way for me to reasonably speed up things without bringing down the frames below 20. That has one little side effect, and that is that your fuel and your time don't match. So what I did before I actually took off is I noted 1 hour milestones. So I went through the flight plan and I also looked at the times calculated. Unfortunately, Simbrief doesn't give you the time. It just gives you the distance and the time to the next waypoint. But it doesn't give you the absolute time when you're planned to arrive at the waypoint. Unfortunately, that doesn't. I don't know if maybe you can activate this. I wasn't able to get this information. So what I did is I had actually entered the flight plan into the FMC, and then I noted down every hour, about around the full hour, I noted down the values for one of the waypoints. I also noted down the fuel that we are supposed to have according to Simbrief, and I used this to fly to each of these 1 hour milestones with 4 times the sim speed, at least most of the time. And then when I arrived there, I switched back to single speed, and then I adjusted the fuel. That's possible in the Flight Factor 350. You can just go to the usual explain menu and just make changes to the fuel, bring it roughly in the area where it should be, and also the time, because I noted the time when we were supposed to be there, and I just used the forward time a little kind of command that exists in XP11, and I carefully used the switch to carefully bring the time up in and around the time that it was supposed to be at that waypoint. And that worked out quite well, and ended up that we were actually spot on when we arrived in Singapore. So trip fuel is 62 tons, contingency fuel about half an hour, about 3.1 tons. The alternate MKZ also about half an hour, also around 3,000 kilograms, and the final reserve half an hour, about 2.5 tons. Actually, it probably should have been a bit more. That makes a minimum takeoff fuel of 70.6 tons. And then we calculate some taxi fuel, 500, and I actually put another 5 tons on top, because I don't really know this aircraft, and I don't know how accurate the Simbrief calculations. They are not 100% accurate, but they are relatively close, so it's actually not too bad. But because we did all this speeding up thing and resetting of fuel and time, I can't really tell how accurate the Simbrief values are. For that, I would need to do a flight where I don't use this kind of acceleration mode and just compare the fuel burn. with the actual calculated values. Probably going to do this at some point for the A350 because I'm interested to see how accurate the profiles that we have are. So in the end, I took about 75 tons or 76 tons. So I added 5 tons on top, so 76 tons. And with that, we actually then took off. So let's see. So that's our alternate. I forgot what the airport is called. And that's our route. It's quite a long one. Originally was intended to start runway 26 right and end up in 26 left. We actually ended up starting on 26 left and arriving in 02 center, because left is actually a military airport, and we can see this. So if we go, for example, to the airport here, you can see there's 02 left. Oh, hang on, 02 left, 02 center, and 02 right is actually a military used runway only for military use. So actually we are only using these two. In between, pilot to ATC suggested 20 center. It's up here, but then the wind changed again. So in the end, we ended up landing towards the north and having to fly around here and then align for the RLS. So yeah, those were the times. Actually, were relatively bang on. So we hit this mark relatively closely for the local time. So that was actually quite good. And I remember when I was flying, it was dark most of the time, and we arrived at Singapore and it was still sort of dark. But by the time we had done all the arrival route and approach lineup and all of that, actually the first daylight came out. So when we landed, we had already, the horizon was already bright. And yeah, that was actually quite good because I was able to see a couple of things that you couldn't really see in the dark. So that was quite impressive. Okay, coming to the weights. So well, I had some difficulties setting up the packs here because so in the end I tried to be close to the 245 tons takeoff weight. Zero fuel weight. It was all a bit difficult with this aircraft, so I kind of messed around and tried to get as close as I can. And obviously we had 5 tons more because I added extra fuel. But as you can see, their calculations actually left a margin of 22 tons additional fuel and other. So we were fine. Adding the 5 tons did not really do any harm. And here's now our flight plan. Basically, in the real aircraft, what you do is once you have entered the flight plan with the airways and all that into your FMC, at some point the captain would go through every single waypoint and make sure that they are in there and that everything in FMC has the proper values. Problem is with the flight factor A350, you have a very incomplete avionics, so you can enter your flight plan, but you can't do sits and stars, and there's no vertical navigation, there's no top of descent calculation, there's nothing of that. Even the speed I had to actually fly it manually because it kind of messed up a bit on that too. So hopefully with V2 of the flight factor A350 we're going to get rid of this issue. Yeah, so in Munich, we will be standing on position 219. 219 here, it has A and B, so it actually has 2 fingers, which you need for the A350 because there are 2 doors, the front door and second door. Second door is for the economy passengers, and the front door is then for the business class or potentially first class. I'm not sure if Singapore actually has also a first class compartment. Yeah. So we are on 219, and we would then be heading out towards Sierra here and then go on the Bravo 13 entry point for a runway 26 left. That's actually what turned out to be the case. Yeah, so a very, very long flight plan, as you can see. Then some weather information. Here I'm not sure how much of that is the weather from Active Sky. I had a couple of things where I realized that these were actually the current weather in Munich values and not the 17th. So yeah, I didn't really check this, but when I was looking through here, most of the time we would actually have favorable winds. That did not turn out like that. So here it looks as if the wind is predominantly coming from the west, and no, it didn't. So we had actually wind facing us a couple of times, slowing down things partially. So this is the ICAO flight plans. All this what we've seen just in a coded form that is ICAO conform, and yeah, so there's no briefing here. And then there are some airmets. Here's the current weather in Munich on the 17th. You can see that this is actually the weather from Active Sky, because the 17 today was the 15th of February when I did all this, and this is the 17th of January at 10:50, because we obviously started at about 11 o'clock local time. So I got the weather then for 10:50, which is 11:50 local time, in time for our for getting our clearance. The weather was very good on the 17th. I was actually pleasantly surprised that we had that good weather. It was CAV OK, QNH 1021, no significant, so that was actually quite good. It was a little bit colder, it had 6 degrees, but that was not too bad. So yeah, I was quite lucky. And also in Changi we had really quiet weather. It was Malacca. Malacca was our destination alternate if we would have needed it, which is just a bit north in Malaysia. Yeah, so the wind was at 1100, was 040 with 8 knots, but yeah, as you can imagine, 11 hours later the wind has changed. We actually had winds from 0 with 6 knots, so it came directly from the north with about 6 knots. Yeah, so the wind wasn't really a factor for us, but obviously because the wind came from the north, we then took the northern facing runway, the 02. Yeah, and that's about it. Here you can see the route again as a whole, but we can see this as well. So here's the whole route, and you can see that we are crossing quite a few countries. Unfortunately, this map isn't really very helpful. Let's switch to this map. So we start in Munich in Germany. We are going to fly via Linz and south of Vienna through Austria, then Hungary, cross Hungary, then into Romania, and we fly through basically all of Romania to the Black Sea. Then we cross the Black Sea and enter. This is still Turkey, I think, here. So we hit the coast again, still in Turkey. And then next we are moving on to Armenia, Yerevan here. So we are actually being called by Yerevan Center. And then Azerbaijan, Baku. So south of Baku, we cross the Caspian Sea and then continue here in still in Azerbaijan. Is that no, hang on, that must be Turkmenistan. Oh yeah, it's Turkmenistan. Yep. Down we kind of fly along the Iranian border. We're actually being called by Tehran once, although I think that's probably not quite correct. We should have stayed with Ashgabat. Here Ashgabat is in Turkmenistan, Ashgabat center. So there was a very short and brief period where we were called by Tehran and then back to Ashgabat, and then we continue into Afghanistan, fly over Afghanistan, Kabul center, and then into Pakistan, fly through Pakistan, then cross the Indian border, fly over the Thar desert, and yeah, all the way through here until we hit the Indian Ocean, or better the Bay of Biscay, as this is called here, and then we fly past the Andaman Islands all the way down to Malaysia. So this here is so up here, by the way, is Thailand. So you can see here Bangkok. So here's Thailand, and yep, and down here. So let's bring this bit closer. So this is Malaysia here, and Singapore is at the southern tip of Malaysia, and it is actually an island. It's an independent city. It's a city slash country. Okay, and the border is here between this island and the rest of Malaysia. There's actually quite a bit of settlements here, and actually many people, they live here because it's cheaper. Singapore is quite expensive, and then they cross on bridges, or probably there are maybe also some ferries or whatever. They cross and then they work in Singapore just to go back again. So this is Malaysia. North of it. So I think basically Singapore kind of is part of Malaysia, or was part of Malaysia, but got independent then at some point. Yeah, and then you have the odd Batam here and so on in the south. So we're going to fly from down here, and then yeah, well, actually basically what we did is we flew here over Malaysia, and then made a turn. Then came down here over the city, so we were actually being able to see all the nice. We have a nice scenery there. It's going to be in the description. And then we turned, and then we had the ILS approach, runway 02, which in the end didn't. Yeah, well, I had better ones, let's say. Okay, so that's it. I don't think there's much more to say. So as I say, I'm going to use the speed. The ground speed mode, and yeah, it turned out to be quite good. So I quite liked it. And then in the end, we actually went via the Lelip arrival. You can see here we came via Aramar, Lelip, JB, and Alpha, and then here after Alpha we turned south, and then got here for the landing, and we used the ILS DME to center. So you can see how we came down here, then turned, and then landed in Singapore. So that's it. That's a very quick summary and also kind of planning session. All worked out well, I have to say, although I had some issues at the beginning, typical technical things that you need to get accustomed to, and obviously I need to get accustomed to the airplane again. Most of the stuff worked. In the end, the landing, the one bit where I was actually manually flying the aircraft, worked out quite okay, but then in the end I got a bit distracted too by pilot to ATC, because pilot to ATC then failed in the end, because I had to fly a slightly different route, because the arrival procedure wasn't really suitable for that aircraft, and it got lost. It lost track. So in the end, it didn't tell me to contact the tower, so I landed without all that. Yeah, and then it asked me to contact the tower shortly before I touched down, and that probably contributed to me being slightly confused why I'm getting contacted now. Anyway, so that's it. In the next part, we are going to see the whole setup of the airplane. And or I might actually combine it with this one, we shall see. And then we're going to have the takeoff and the initial flight. And then I'm going to bring individual status updates approximately every hour. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Just giving you a status update, and then also talking about the one or the other thing. Okay, that's it. Hope that was interesting, just to see what I'm planning here. And yeah, now let's see how that all works out in real.
Hello there. number 2 when the wind is 21017.
Hello. Welcome to my flight from Munich to Singapore. In the first part I gave a quick overview of the flight planning and how I'm intending to do this flight here. So today we are now in the aircraft, or at the aircraft, better to say. It is the 17th of January 2020. Active Sky and all the other tools hopefully have been set up to replicate the weather and the conditions of that time. And yeah, so we are now ready to start the whole loading and other stuff, and let's go ahead. Let's jump into the cockpit and begin with all the activities that are required. Okay, so here we are in the Flight Factor A350. I just realized I'm actually sitting on the wrong side. Let's shift the view and persist it. Okay, so we're on the A350, and I've already given you the brief in the first part. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use the flight briefing, and for that I quickly call up my Simtoolkit Pro. Simtoolkit Pro has this flight planning mode. Okay, and what you can see in here is basically the most important parameters. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set up weights and fuel as one of the first things. So according to the Simbrief planning, we should take 71.9 tons. I'm going to ramp this up to about 80 tons in order to be on the safe side, because I have no idea how accurate the fuel planning is. Therefore, we're going to have about 9 tons more in weight. Yeah, so that's going to be the first thing I'm going to do. For that, we have to go down. Oops. We have to go down here, and I first go to the fuel section, and yeah, I think you can do some calculations here. So destination fuel, taxi time to remain. So see, I haven't been flying with this aircraft for a long time, so they say 62 100 tons to destination. The alternate or the contingency is 3,100. The taxi time or the alternate is also 3,000. I'm going to round those numbers. APU time, let's say 30 minutes. Taxi time is about 20 minutes, and to remain I want to have at least 1 hour's worth, so 6,000. So that makes it 75.358 kilograms. That kinda looks okay to me. Okay, so I click on implement, and that makes the fuel then set to 75 here. Now let's go to the passengers. According to the weight and balance, we have passengers of 315. So we have crew 4, first class, let's say 30.
67 Bravo November at Whiskey 5, cross runway 18 center, and taxi Charlie 7. Whiskey 5,
And 315. So yeah, so that would be 285. Oh no, first class we have 5. Business class we have 20. You need to click. So that makes it 29. Maybe we should do 5 here to get a nice round number is 30. So that makes 285 passengers. Invalid configuration. So obviously we are too heavy. So it's difficult to kind of match this. Basically what we want to have is a takeoff weight of 245. Total payload weight 27. So what do they say? Here, payload 32.9. Invalid configuration. Yeah, and then we have also the cargo. Cargo is 0. So I don't know. I will probably need to. Let's try middle. So it's 140. Let's try heavy. Yeah. Heavy is a total payload weight of 48. That is a little bit much. So I'm going to reduce the cargo. I'm going to reduce the cargo by doing kind of 4 and 3. 4.
136, hello sir, at Whiskey 5, cross runway 18 center, taxi to gate, Delta 3.
2.
Whiskey 5, cross 18 center to Delta
37.
3,
32. So we're still a little bit heavy. 18 crew. Let's do that. 10. We're a cheap airline. 36. That didn't really make that much difference. Okay, let's put in 2 in here.
551 after crossing the runway, the first right onto Delta, contact 121-705.
Yeah, almost. We need 1 ton less. That's a little bit cumbersome to set this up. Yeah, well. See what happens when I put 1 in here. That's it. Okie dokie, so let's implement this, and that means we have roughly the passenger and the weight now that we want. Let's quickly check the cabin. We turn on the cabin lighting, store all automatic, all manual. Okay, but I think that's done anyway. Our water levels and waste levels are okay for the flight. Then there is this performance calculator. I think that I first need to enter something in the can't enter anything here. So the gross weight, takeoff weight 245, gross weight here is 223. So the overall gross weight is actually a bit less. Well, you know what? That's okay. I'm not going to try and force it now to be exactly the same. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. So we leave it like this, and that means we have the aircraft set up. Which brings us to here. Let's go a bit closer. So. And we need to go on the FMS1. Yeah. And we go to the init page. The flight number is SIA 327. We are flying from Echo Delta Delta Mike. Enter to WSSS. That's Changi in Singapore. And we're going to use a predefined route, which I have already. The cruise flight level will initially be 330. We're going to have to change this. The cost index 160. I'm not even sure if this aircraft has a concept. The IRSs are aligned, it seems, or will align. Align IRS. Okay. So return. Good. The departure, we still need to talk to pilot to ATC about that. Navigates. Okay. Fuel and load. Okay, here we can check again. So our zero fuel weight, and I guess it looks almost as if I need to enter these values here again. So our zero fuel weight is... Where can I see this actually? Ah, that's interesting. Fuel distributed, fuel on board, cargo, miscellaneous weight, total payload weight 32. Yeah. Good question. Let's see, the zero fuel weight should be something in and around 174 tons. Or not 400. 400 sounds a bit too much. 174.6. I'm taking the Simbrief values now. I don't think that this here is doing anything, and our center of gravity is can't do anything here yet. 27.4. Okay, 27.4. Is that the block fuel? Probably fuel planning, yeah, so that's probably 75. What's our fuel? It's 75.3. And yeah, not that it's doing anything really. I still try and figure out when I get this free, but I guess I need to enter some stuff. So what did we say? 20 minutes for taxiing.
With a 5 Lima Mike, Grand Window, start a pushback facing east approved.
So the taxi fuel, let's see, go back to the fuel planning here in the Simbrief. The taxi fuel is 500. So that's 0.5 tons. Not that that changes anything. Ah, now you have to enter all the digits. Pax numbers are 319, CI 160, it somehow took that one. Yeah, okay, route reserve. Final reserve is, yeah, I leave this here, alternate. Oh yeah, the alternate is 3 tons. 3 tons, and you have this really strange noise coming here. I don't know if you can hear that. And our final reserve is also 3 tons.
Around 564 from Alpha 4, expect backtrack runway 29.
Okay, so that's that. Fuel stuff. Takeoff performance.
564, take Oscar to the right, next left Alpha, hold short to 9.
So we're going to use a flex, and we're going to take off with flaps too.
564, Oscar to the right now. Then Alpha
And
to the
I'm
left.
just going
Hold
to
short runway 29.
let this. So it's in theory our V speeds are 135, 140, 145. To be honest, I have no idea what this thing does here. So I'm going to take what is in here, and I'm assuming that they can't be that wrong. That's unfortunately, yeah, the flight factor A350 is missing vital parts, including, by the way, the departure route. Okay, so climb, cruise,
Oscar to the right now.
econ cruise, Mach 84, 290 knots speed. We might actually have to bump this up a bit. Okay, right, so here's the flight plan. It has already been put in, and as you can see, it has actually put in the flight plan from Simbrief. Unfortunately, what it didn't do is the second step climb to flight level 370 has actually gone lost. So I'm going to put in as a token value, I'm going to put this in so that I know roughly here at somewhere between Mehmet and KKJ we need to climb to 370. And I might have to do this then manually. So this isn't really working very well. Okay, you have your flight plan, that's okay, but the whole vertical aspect isn't really covered properly in this aircraft, unfortunately. Right, what else can we do here? So we've got through the performance, we've got through the fuel load. The wind page is not available, and the init page we have already been in. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to request the clearance from pilot to ATC. I wonder how well that will work today. You know, all these tools, it's amazing how much trouble you go through trying to make things work. It's really strange at times. Yeah. So the first thing we're going to do, and I'm not going to speak, I'm going to use the say it function, which in theory you can put on a button on a joystick, but it doesn't work. So I'm going to use a key for that, and I let it speak everything because I can't be bothered now. We're also doing the voice. Okay, just for your information, we are here now. So we're on Terminal 2, and it's stand 219, which is I think somewhere in the G or H area, I think. So you need to go up there and have your passport shown before you get into that terminal area, I think. And yeah, so that's where we are standing. This is the aviator, the EFB tablet thingy here, that freeware tool. I can't integrate it yet, or I haven't yet got a mod for the A350 to integrate that here, so that's why I'm using it as an external window. Right. And yeah, so the first thing we need to do now is get actually the H's.
Munich information uniform, 950 Zulu winds are light and variable. Visibility unrestricted. Sky condition VFR. Temperature 3, dew point 1. Current QNH is 1021. Arriving and departing runway 26 left, 26 right. Munich information
26, so we're going to take off via 26. So let's go to clearance delivery. Unfortunately, again, I have a problem with the ATC chatter. Pilot to ATC in theory has ATC chatter, and in theory it also uses it, but it's so low in volume, and I haven't been able to vamp the volume up for Pilot to ATC for that part, that I had to go to the ATC chatter plugin. In theory, the ATC chatter plugin can integrate with external integrations, but it only does that for XLive, which by the way is running in the background. Okay, So once I change over to X-Live ATC, there is no chatter anymore. But that also means that during instructions we also will hear the chatter. It's a bit, yeah, it's a mess basically. So none of these tools really work seamlessly together. There's always something. But anyway, that's how Simmer's life is, right? Okay, so let's call ATC.
Ryanair 909 sounds 11, request push and start.
And for some reason,
push and start as a through face north, QNH1023.
say it key doesn't work either.
Runway 7.
This is really, it's a pain. It's painful, really flippin' painful, to say the least. So for some reason it doesn't detect my key now. Really strange, so I have to change the key and hopefully that'll do the trick. This is oops, go away.
And ground for the Channel Cape, Mike Yankee. Yeah, we're going to be changing aircraft here. This one is,
Yesterday at least the key worked, today not even the key
we
works.
have a spare one here on the ground, so I'll cancel domestic clearance and we'll be in touch again in a little while.
Okay.
Mike Yankee, that's all good.
Actually, nothing works at the moment. Not sure why that is. So let's see.
Singapore 327 ready to copy IFR clearance.
Singapore 327 is cleared to Whiskey Sierra Sierra Sierra. Fly the BIBA 3W departure, with the bybag transition, then as filed. Expect departure runway 26 left. Climb to flight level
26 left.
050 via the departure.
050.
Expect higher clearances 2 minutes after departure.
3433.
To stand 9 report on stand.
So 3433. I think we need to go a bit closer here, because otherwise it is a bit painful. We need to go to the squawk. There it is. And then we need to press here. What was it? 3433. Squawk 3433. Now we go. Master, okay. The mode is in standby. And initially it's going to be flight level or 5,000 feet. That's fine. So I can now confirm
Singapore
this.
327 is cleared to Whiskey Sierra 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 fly
And
Viva
it's the
3W
BBAT
departure with
arrival,
bag
so what we need to do now is we
transition
need to go
to flight level
here.
050 via the departure.
We need to
Expect
select
higher
departure.
clearances 2 minutes
We
after
set
departure.
26 left.
3433.
And I have already with
Singapore 327
simple FMC prepared
QNH is 1
the departures, so I'm going to use this one, apply.
Ready for pushback. Have a good one.
So we can now see how we are taking off here, and we need to then get rid of this discontinuity to be back. Alright. Okay, so cockpit preparation, capped purs, remaining lights as seatbelt signs on. Aha. Oh yeah, this one is not automatic, so we need to do a little bit of setting up here. And while we're at it, I'm also going to start the now, I'm trying to get all these lights off now. I'm going to start the APU.
Charlie Mike, ground taxi Alpha, hold short 17.
Okay,
Contact tower
so let's see
119.
remaining lights as required. Check
Runway 17 and contact the tower.
airflow selector normal. ECAM, ELEC, DC page. ECAM, ELEC, DC page, so they want us to, which is a bit difficult from here. They want us to call the ELEC DC page. Alright. Did I not call for that page? Obviously not. There's always something. Now. Alright, all batteries current below 60. Yeah, APU generator on. Yeah, this one was actually still off. Cargo air select as required. That's all here. Okay, we've got that. Next. Air data selectors check. Anti-skid. Anti-skid has to be turned on. Yeah, standby instruments check. Next. Oh yeah, service. We need all these system things now. And unfortunately, it's a little bit awkward now because I have to jump a lot between different things. So we need to turn those on. Reset. Okay, next. Then we're supposed to select the surface, surveillance, or whatever that's called, controls page. So transponder 3433 is set, and we need to put it into auto mode.
We're happy with that, so push and start is approved, says north 17.
We need to put it into auto mode, which is not possible for some reason. Ah yeah, now it is auto mode. Okay, not sure what auto mode actually does. Then TCAS mode, TA
you may have to wait,
and normal. Then the weather mode, we're going into auto, all of these.
We're happy with that, so push and start is approved.
And we're going to turn on all the systems. So then they want us to open the init page, which is on the FMS, and then it's the init page, so everything's fine there. Right, so what was the
ground channel gate Mike Yankee.
What was the condition? We have pressure of 1021. That means we need to actually set the barometric pressure.
You have to have the oceanic clearance before departure. We were actually just discussing that whether they actually refollowed a new plan for you. Well, we have new flight plans with the current reg of DVI on it, so I don't know, it's just slow getting into the system.
So we got that. Next. Then ND mode range as required. Yeah, we've got the PFD on now. That's all stuff from the... Good. Why have we got still red on the overhead panel?
Approve face north 17,
I don't know.
QNH 1021, next Pascal.
Push the start cruise face north runway 17, QNH 1021, storage over.
Alright, okay, that's all through. And that means we can go to the B4 pushback and start. So we'll get the clearance. So fuel quantity is checked. The final load sheet we have checked. Zero fuel weight is set in the FMS. ECAM seats, seat belts, pedals are adjusted, and the external power. So let's quickly check. So the APU is now available. I'm going to activate the APU bleed. I'm going to turn off the external power. And yeah, so we're going to... now I can.
Hello, 2367, good morning, Roger, runway 31 right.
Flap setting is 2. So according to this, we would actually have 166, 167, 169. So we shall probably put this in.
Roger, thank you.
What was that? 66, 67, 69. 166, 167, 169. All right. So let's go to the ground stuff, ground equipment. We can now disconnect the ground power unit and we can actually start closing the doors.
2367, vacate runway via Zulu, then continue taxi
get rid of the
and uniform gate 3.
get rid of the whole stuff. By the way, X-Life is producing a bit of traffic because it looks really odd when you have an empty airport. So I'm going to now remove all those. I'm going to remove now all those trucks, so chocks, passenger bus, fuel truck, luggage loaders, cleaning truck. Okay, and we disconnect also the high pressure unit. I don't know why that was actually. And I'm closing all the doors. Alright. It's not quite the sequence you would normally have. These for some reason don't work. It's not that important either. And yeah, I think we are fine. Yeah, good. Which means that we are still on clearance delivery. I haven't actually confirmed the last yet.
QNH is 1021 ground on 121.77 Singapore 327.
So we've switched frequency now and we are basically ready for pushback. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to already call for a better pushback.
Wind at 1,000 feet, 080 degrees at 30 knots.
Yeah, that's what we have going to 296.
Is it correct?
So we want to the 26 left, which is basically to our left, and it's the runway facing west. So I'm going to try and see where the line is.
Wind at 1,000 feet, 080 degrees at 30 knots.
Yeah, that's what we have going to 296.
Is it correct? Thank you.
Enter.
Bodenanbrücke. Der Schlepper bringt sich in Position.
And we're also going to get rid of yeah, so I think that's with the beacon. So if I turn the beacon on, I think that then Sam would. Or maybe not. So how do we get that? How do we get rid of that? Let's see. Not sure. Parking brake is set.
Bodenanbrücke. Alle Türen und Luken sind verschlossen. Wir sind bereit, den Schlepper zu verbinden.
Yeah. So how do I tell Sam now to get rid of the connections, hey? Okay, let's do automatic. Yeah. Something is peeping. I can't get rid of the gates. I don't know why Sam isn't moving them away. Not sure.
Schlepper ist verbunden. Der Beifahrersitz ist gesetzt. Bitte lösen Sie die Parkbremse.
Okay.
clear destination, runway 13 left, Nora for Bravo departure, 7,000 feet, QNH 9020, close for 232 reserve.
So I'm going to attempt again to get my SAID hotkey
correct, report landing.
assigned, hopefully.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that is. I'll try another one.
Quality move 2 line 4, reservation, that's SIA.
No, none of the hotkeys work today. That means I need to press the flippin' button on the UI. Okay.
Quality move 2 line 4,
Singapore 327 ready for pushback. Singapore 327 pushback approved.
Pushback approved.
Pushback approved. Singapore 327.
Lovely 2368. What will be our runway for departure and the SID?
So, I didn't really hear if these guys are ready, but I'm just going to assume that they are.
13 left, confirm?
I confirm 13 left, and exit point is Eros.
And Eros,
We
thank you.
release the parking
Eros
brake.
for Bravo, expect departure.
Eros for Bravo,
Wir
thank
beginnen
you.
mit dem Pushback. Die Triebwerke sind frei zum Anlassen.
Okay, so have we got everything here?
So lovely 2368.
I think we
What
have.
will be
So
our runway for
pushing on
departure and
and we
the
start
SID?
engine number.
Runway will be 13 left, and what is
2.
your exit point from the CME?
13 left, confirm?
I confirm 13 left, and exit point is Eros.
And Eros, thank you.
Eros for Bravo, expect departure.
Eros for Bravo, thank you.
Ground, Xavier 194, gating Shadow 4.
Dag, Bravo 94, taxi via Quebec to Echo 7.
Quebec, Echo 7, Xavier 194.
Okay, seems like we've got a good start. We're starting number 1.
Also 1 to the gate as well, Xavier 194.
Looking good so far.
Ground, good evening. Xavier 57 Romeo, vacated Shadow 4.
Rechter 5 Romeo, taxi to Delta 10.
Would taxi to Delta 10, Xavier 57 Romeo.
Okay, the engine start is through. Next is the after start. Engine and controls. So park brake. Not yet. We're still pushing.
Ground low, 73 Yankee, Sierra 4.
Orange 73 Yankee, hello, taxi Delta 12.
Taxi Delta 12, Orange 73 Yankee. Der Push-Vorgang ist abgeschlossen. Bitte setzen Sie die Parkbremse.
Park brake is set.
Schlepper wird getrennt. Einen kleinen Moment bitte.
Okay, so flaps 2. And we check all the other things. Engine start selector we can put back to normal. The APU bleed can be turned off. Anti-ice, we have 3 degrees, so they are in automatic mode. So put that into automatic mode. By the way, what's this here? Okay, that's all automatic. Okay. APU master switch. We can turn off now.
Der Schlepper wurde entfernt, der Bypass-Pin ist gezogen. Freizeichen gibt's von der rechten Seite. Einen angenehmen Flug. Tschüss.
Danke. RPA generator push button off. Ground spoilers. We need to arm the ground spoilers.
Goedemorgen,
we
dit is
do.
495, Delta 54, we are full tank.
Tuscan 495.
So I think that's the way to do it.
Push that approved, 495.
Yep. Flap lever set is set. Pitch trim check. Okay, so for the pitch trim, this is actually, it is a bit awkward to do this both here. So pitch trim, you need to go to the flight control page. And we need to check again what we had as pitch trims. What did he tell us about pitch trim? Minus THS setting, minus 6.3. Is that the pitch trim now? Headwind, CG 27.4. Yeah, good question. To be honest, I'm not sure. And anyway, where do I actually set pitch trim? Should that not be automatic? Takeoff shift. Performance. I thought that should be here somewhere. Flex 45. To be honest, I have no idea, so let's assume that it is right. I'm a bit tired of having to find everything here. Passenger data. Passenger data.
So Alpha is not closed anymore then?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next. Next. Okay. So that gives us the taxi checklist. No slides. So we can request taxi now.